have a controversial thought for you today. What if Christmas didn't begin as a holiday, but as a physiologic intervention? Welcome back to an episode of Don't Look Up, where we ask you to look up. We go into cutting edge science, topics, controversies, and this particular topic is a fun one. It's all about Christmas. It's all about a mushroom called the Amanita Muscaria mushroom. What if Santa Claus didn't start with elves, sleighs, or Coca-Cola? What if he started because of a mushroom? Back in Siberia, 1,000 years ago or more, it was super cold during the winter. People lived in these huts that were built among snow piles, and they would dry these mushrooms. Why? They dried these mushrooms because they saw what happened when reindeers would eat them. Reindeers would eat these mushrooms and act very strange. They would be very confused. They seemed like they were having a good time. And so people in the area started exploring these mushrooms as well for many different things. Shaman would come to people's houses in Siberia. They would dry these mushrooms and have ceremonial experiences around them. Why did they do this? It was not easy to be in Siberia 1,000 years ago in the snow. They had to have some rituals to help get their spirits higher and help relax them. We all know that if we're cooped up inside for too long, we all can kind of go stir crazy. And so they used this mushroom as a way to ceremonially help people throughout the winter time. Now, if you took this mushroom, you could have a psychedelic-like experience. These shaman were wearing something very similar to what the mushroom looked like. They were wearing red. And the reindeer, of course, they knew they could look like they were flying sometimes. And so there is a whole this mythology and lore around these mushrooms. If you go to Europe now, or Russia, Siberia, this mushroom motif is everywhere. And it's in our popular culture too. Keyboard emojis, Santa Claus, of course, right? At Alice in Wonderland, Mario Brothers. It's been everywhere. If you look for a mushroom, this is the mushroom you're gonna find. Now, what's super cool about this mushroom, yes, it causes a psychedelic experience, but it does more than that too. On the psychedelic side, it has two major compounds, one called ibotenic acid and one called agarine. Ibotenic acid is a neurotoxic ingredient. It's actually what causes the psychedelic experience. The psychedelic experience is not like psilocybin or LSD or something like that. It's more of a luminal state, let's call it, where you have a little bit of dissociation, but you don't have huge visions typically, although sometimes you can. Ibotenic acid is the main compound that does that. Agarine is a long-acting molecule on the GABA receptor. GABA is our primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's one that calms down the firing of the brain. What's cool about agarine is it's long-acting, 6.5 hours is about the half-life, and it increases the amount of tone on the GABA receptor by specifically binding to where GABA would bind. And it's very rare to find a compound that actually does that. Most of the compounds that are enhancing the GABA receptor are not binding to where GABA would bind, they're binding on a separate site, what we call an allosteric site. That's okay. However, some of those allosteric binders like alcohol, benzos, sleep drugs, even some of your common supplements like kava, for example, can bind to these separate sites and deplete GABA over time because they're enhancing the affinity for GABA to bind. There's not enough GABA around, or you're going to deplete GABA over time if you're using a lot of it. And so the cool thing about agarine is it can kind of come in and work just like GABA. And so then it protects the GABA receptor from being depleted from GABA, decreasing your risk of tolerance, withdrawal, and dependence. So what happens when you improve your GABA tone, meaning you enhance the GABA system? Well, you feel better. You can actually turn your brain off. Most of us love turning on. Very few of us have a really easy time turning off anymore. The hustle culture is real. It is everywhere. I grew up in New York, the city that never sleeps. I went to medical school. My colleagues and I had shirts that were made that said sleep is for quitters. You'll sleep when you're dead. This is not therapeutically healthy for us. Your day starts when you go to bed, not when you wake up. So if you treat sleep as the primary or the first thing that you do every day rather than the last, it can go a long way. But how do you get good sleep? Well, you need more GABA around. Sleep is not just dependent on your melatonin levels, everybody. I'm sorry to say, but if you're just taking melatonin, you're not doing your brain a service at all. Now, maybe a little bit, especially as we get older, because our melatonin levels do deteriorate, do decline as we get older. But it's just a sleep signal to help you fall asleep and some sleep maintenance. But you need the GABA system, especially to help you fall asleep and maintain sleep. You know, when you're in REM sleep is your rapid eye movement sleep, when your eyes are going crazy underneath your eyelids. Most of you have heard this before. You're dreaming, right? You're dreaming about anything that you can imagine, anything that's crazy. But why don't you wake up during your dreams? Because you have GABA around that keeps you sleeping while you're getting chased by a lion or in a circus and you're on a hot air balloon or whatever it might be. You fall asleep with melatonin and GABA. You maintain sleep with GABA and actually serotonin. But the GABA system is so important here. So if you don't have enough GABA around, you're going to wake up, and then you're going to wake up in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling going, what the hell am I supposed to do now? Your mind is racing. This is your GABA system kind of going haywire. So it's so important to enhance that GABA system to help you sleep. And there's a number of different ways to do this, as I was just mentioning, but the key here is a comprehensive support on that GABA receptor. Not just something that binds to that separate site and enhancing GABA to bind, but something that's going to support GABA itself. And that's where Agarin comes in. Agarin is great because, again, it binds directly where GABA would bind. And so you don't have to extract the mushroom and eat the mushroom to get there. Although you can find tons of Amanita extracts now on the market. They're used ceremonially, they're used for sleep, they're used for stress and anxiety. That's all very good. The challenge is that it's going to have some of that ibotenic acid in it too, and a lot of these formulas aren't standardized. So you have to be very careful as to what you're getting out there. So what we did is that we synthesized the Agarin directly, so it's pure Agarin, so it's not with any other mushroom parts in there. You get that pure Agarin and very low doses, 1 milligram, 2 milligrams at most, but really a half to 1 milligram is the optimal dose for most people. You can take it during the day as well, as long as you take it with other things that are going to help mildly activate you. For example, we have something called Trocom prescriptions that has nicotinol GABA, which is basically a vitamin B3 attached to the GABA, along with kava, CBD, and CBG, and that's something you can take during the day. We also have another product called Tro Plus Com that has the Agarin, niacin, and one other compound in there as well called Honochiol, or dihydrohonochiol specifically. And that's very good as well for anxiety and stress relief. And so you can comprehensively support your GABA system during the day and during the night with this very cool compound that came from Santa Claus, maybe, called Agarin. So you do not have to trip to get the positive experience of having the GABA tone improve. You can take this isolated compound called Agarin and see fantastic benefits. Now remember, in the winter, this is usually when people have a harder time with stress management, with holidays, with families. Work can be very, very difficult. And managing your GABA system can go a long way. And so, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you were in Siberia, you were basically surrounded in a hut with snow for 4 months and you couldn't get out. That's pretty stressful. So these mushrooms, the Amanita mushrooms, were a great way to calm down. Oh, by the way, how did the shaman get into these huts? They climbed through the chimney because that was the only way in, because the sides of the Siberian hut were all covered in snow. So where did they get in? They climbed up the ceiling or the roof and went down the chimney, just like Santa Claus, in their red outfit that looked like the mushroom. So many people don't believe this, and that's okay. But this is separate from the Christmas Christian mythology, okay? But remember, a lot of these ceremonies around the solstices were timed around Christian and Jewish and those holidays to help combine a lot of these cultures together to get people to sign on, right? And so in the winter, it's hard. We're tired, we're stressed, we don't get enough sunlight. And so having ways to enhance the GABA system can go a long way. And I see this in clinical practice all the time. There's a little bit of GABA supplementation in the winter especially can get people through. But in the end, feeling better now can be transformative to both you and your family. You're going to be better and showing up better to all the people around you. And I know this offhand. I mean, most of you know too. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids. And if one of my kids yells at me, I don't have to yell back. I can, but that has nothing to do with them, right? It has everything to do with me. Unless they're in an emergency, somebody's dying or think that they're going to die or whatever, which is usually not happening, right? Most of the time, it's our nervous system that's so hyperactive that we don't know how to calm down and be responsive rather than reactive. So if you're more responsive in your life and less reactive, do you think things are going to go better? The answer is yes. This is all dependent on turning that off switch on and maintaining that off switch on. And then when we need to get activated, we do it, but we can come back down to a baseline that's not as stressed and is calmer. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Don't Look Up, where we ask you again to look up, getting into cutting edge science, fun topics, flying reindeer, Santa Claus this time. If you're listening to this around the holidays, I wish you a fantastic holiday. I hope it's great with family, friends. Get some sleep, get good rest, take a walk after you eat a big meal, and enhance your GABA system. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe below. Comment below, please. We read everything. And we'll see you next time.